All right, Janin, while you are getting signed in, let's go ahead and get started with some of the introductions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'm Casey Judge with the Department of Planning and Development. I'm in the Zoning Administration Division. I'm also joined by Mike Adams with the Department of Code Compliance, and we'll be talking to you a little bit tonight about signs. We'd like to give a little introduction on the current regulations, go over the code enforcement piece of the puzzle, and then go into an upcoming zoning ordinance amendment that we'll be working on in DPD. So thank you for joining using our platform public input. I'm going to go over kind of how to use the platform. I know it is maybe a new platform for some of us here tonight. So during the meeting, we are going to have 3 Q&A periods. You can submit comments or questions into the chat box at any time throughout the meeting, and then we'll go ahead and read out that comment or question during the next Q&A session. To speak during the Q&A period, please call 855-925-2801 and enter meeting code 8383. You'll listen to the prompts and then you can leave an audio message, or you can wait for us to unmute you and we'll let you speak and ask your question or leave your comment. If English is not your primary language, you can click the translate button at the top of the page, and this will allow you to view closed captions, and the chat box will appear in the language of your choice. So to make comments or ask questions in another language, please use the chat box so we can make sure those get translated and over to us. Closed captions are available on the meeting by default, so if you do want to turn them off, click the CC button at the bottom right hand of the page. If you have any technical issues or questions, please add them to the chat and we'll address them as quickly as possible. So I do have Janan Cato and Sarah Godfrey today also with me on this call, and they'll be monitoring the chat and the phone calls coming in. So we do have some slides for you tonight. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, and as I mentioned, this is our introduction to sign regulations, and we'll start with an overview of the current zoning ordinance regulations that pertain to signs. Then we'll pause for that Q&A break and go into then the zoning ordinance enforcement process, and Mike's going to talk about that as well as signs in the right-of-way. We'll pause again for another Q&A, and then last but not least, we'll go on to the upcoming zoning ordinance amendment that relates to signs. So first, without further ado, the current regulations for signs, they are located in Article 7 of the zoning ordinance. These regulations were part of a rewrite in 2019 that came out of a U.S. Supreme Court case decision, the Reed versus Town of Gilbert Supreme Court case decision. And essentially what we as staff were tasked at doing was to make sure that all of our regulations were content neutral. So to make sure that we're not regulating a sign based on the message of the sign itself. So in general, unless specifically exempted, all signs must obtain a permit, but we do have some exemptions listed, most notably minor signs. These are your signs that are designed to be easily moved. They're typically not permanently attached to a structure of the ground, and they're not illuminated. This includes your A-frame or sidewalk signs. It includes banners and posters, window signs, yard signs, and other similar movable signs. We do have some other sign types that don't require a permit, and those are listed out in Article 7. In terms of this group, you may be interested in minor signs and what kinds of minor signs you can have on a non-residential property. So we do allow for building mounted and freestanding minor signs. If you're located on a major thoroughfare, so a major road, you do get up to 32 square feet in minor signs. Any other lot that's not on a major thoroughfare is limited to 24 square feet. If you're interested in figuring out if you're on a major thoroughfare, I've included a link to the roadways by functional classification listing that's in our comprehensive plan, and that's going to list out the roadways and what segments of those roadways are considered to be a major thoroughfare. These regulations also allow a maximum of 2 freestanding signs at 4 feet tall. So off-premise commercial signs, so that could include those signs advertising an event or a business that are located off-site, so on a different private property, can only be displayed from noon Friday to noon Monday. And these signs are limited to those sizes that I just talked about on the previous slide. Window signs are not another common minor sign type. We do limit them to 30% of the maximum coverage of the window in which the sign is located. And then A-frame or sidewalk signs, we do allow one sign up to 16 square feet in size and 4 feet tall. It must be located within 25 feet of a building or site entrance, and it cannot impede any of our pedestrian or vehicular traffic. Electronic display signs are another common sign type that we do get a lot of questions about in our department. And we do allow electronic display signs as part of a freestanding sign. We do limit these to one electronic display sign per lot. And the display area is allowed to be 50% of the maximum freestanding sign area. So half of what you'd be allowed as a minor sign, as a freestanding sign could be taken up by electronic signage. Now, we do have some limitations to prevent any sort of strobe lighting or flashing effect. We do require that they cannot move or change more than once every 8 seconds, and it must be an instantaneous change. The background cannot be white, off-white, gray, or yellow. And then I think this is pretty important for a lot of the surrounding residents and communities. We do have a photo cell requirement to control brightness that does automatically dim at sunset to 40 to 100 nits. There are a couple different ways to ask for additional signage. I would say most notably we see special exceptions and comprehensive sign plans. The special exception application does allow for additional sign area and sign height, and that does require a public hearing with both the Planning Commission and ultimately the Board of Supervisors is making the determination and the decision on those application types. The Comprehensive Sign Plan, or CSP, this is also a public hearing, and it's only with the Planning Commission, so they're making that decision rather than going to the board as well. And this approval type is limited to just planned districts, so no conventional districts are currently allowed to request this type of application. Now, this is kind of a good foreshadowing slide because we do plan at looking at these approval types as part of our upcoming zoning ordinance amendment. We also have a list of prohibited sign types. I think we do get a lot of calls in about moving or windblown signs. So these wacky, wavy, inflatable people and blow up signs, those are not allowed in Fairfax County. And we do have a list in subsection 700.5 that lists out the prohibited sign types based on materials or location. And then, of course, we do have some other subsections and sections that may be relevant to the different types of signs that you all have. We do have sections pertaining to non-conforming signs, so signs that predate the 2019 ordinance requirements. We do have subsection 7100.7 that does explain how to measure your signs. And then section 7101 discusses the sign regulations by the zoning district. So those are very important for signs in residential districts, as well as signs in commercial and industrial districts. Currently we have some helpful links on our website as well. The first one is a link to the sign ordinance page, and that goes over a summary of the regulations that are contained in Article 7. We also have a sign permits webpage. So if you have questions about refacing a sign or how you're calculating the sign area or how to apply for a permit for a sign, this is a really great resource, as well as our FAQs page. This is specifically on signs as the topic of FAQs, and it has a lot of great commonly asked questions. So these are all great resources for you to check out. So before we turn it over to Mike, do we have any questions or comments on the current zoning ordinance regulations that pertain to signs? I will ask Janan and Sarah, are we seeing anything in the chat or any people calling in to be unmuted?
No, I don't see anything on my end. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, if you all do have any comments, feel free, even once we move into the next sections, and we'll make sure to circle back and answer them. So I will then turn it over to Mike to talk about our ordinance enforcement process.
Thanks, Casey. Hi. Once again, my name is Mike Adams. I'm one of the supervisors with the Department of Code Compliance, and I'll be going through the enforcement piece with you this evening. So a lot of questions people ask. So what happens when there's a complaint that a sign on a private property does not comply with zoning regulations? If a complaint is made to the county's Department of Code Compliance, known as DCC, an investigator will be assigned and will inspect the property. So Department of Code Compliance. These are some of the details about DCC. Most of our enforcement programs are complaint driven and are mainly focused on the county zoning ordinance and the state's building code regarding building construction and maintenance codes. Okay, next slide. Complaints. DCC responds to approximately 7,500 complaints in 2020. A citizen can file a complaint by calling 703-324-1300 or going to our website at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/code, where there's a link to an email address or web forms that a citizen can use to register a complaint that way. Okay. So enforcement on signs on private property. These are our enforcement steps with an emphasis on enforcing the zoning regulations for signs on private property. These steps include conducting a site visit and trying to contact the responsible party, identifying the type of sign, determining if a sign permit is required or whether the sign type in question is a type that is flat out prohibited on the property. If there is a violation of the zoning or sign regulations, a notice of violation, also called an NOV, is issued directly to the responsible party to come into compliance within a specified time frame. When voluntary compliance is not achieved, litigation may be required to bring the property into compliance. Litigation may entail fines and/or a court order to require the responsible parties to comply. If there's not a violation, the case is closed. In all situations, DCC staff reports back to the complainant about the findings of the investigation. Most importantly, only if the complainant leaves contact information. Okay. Signs in the right-of-way. This is another way signs are regulated in the county and is not by the zoning ordinance. It is also not a complaint-based process. This is through the county's illegal signs and the right-of-way removal program, and it applies to sign placed in certain Virginia Department of Transportation right-of-ways, which are commonly called ROWs. Virtually all signage that is placed in the right-of-ways by an entity other than VDOT or its contractors are illegal and can be removed through the illegal sign removal program. If the signage is within the right-of-way, that is part of the program. Fairfax County attained the state's approval to have the sign program in March of 2013, and the program officially started on July 1st of that year. The program is currently expanded to cover only 99 roads. The selected right-of-ways in the program are major roads. They're not normally found in any type of subdivision. And the number of signs removed was over 15,000 in 2018 and over 9,000 in 2020. While DCC administers the program, the illegal signage itself is removed by the Sheriff's Community Labor Force, or CLF. Okay. Then how does DCC enforce? Regarding how the program works, rather than operating on a complaint-based system, the CLF drives the roads in the program on a routine schedule, picking up illegal signage in the right-of-way Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Those are the only days that they will drive and remove the signs on those 99 roads. DCC staff provides support to the program by routinely driving the applicable right-of-ways Tuesday through Thursday, photographing and identifying illegal signage. DC staff members also provide administrative support to the program by issuing the informational letters, also known as warning letters, to the responsible parties, advising them to discontinue placing any more signs on the right-of-way. If the responsible party continues placing signs in any of the applicable right-of-ways, then they are subject to fines of $100 per sign plus a $10 administrative fee per sign. As mentioned, a limited number of roads are included in this program and virtually no neighborhood streets are included. Citizens and civic groups who would like to remove signs from neighborhood streets or other roads not included in this program are encouraged to seek permission through VDOT's Adopt a Highway program. Okay. Are there any questions about DCC's enforcement of signs on private property, or any questions about the illegal sign removal program?
No questions have come in yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
And if you are having any issues leaving comments, we have been told that sometimes the comment function is a little wonky, I believe, in Chrome. So check out another browser or feel free to give us a call and we'll be happy to listen to your questions or comments. So I will go ahead and dive into the upcoming zoning ordinance amendment. As I mentioned, we did have a rewrite in 2019 that focused on content neutrality And now we're really looking at the other sign regulations. Is there something else that needs to be addressed? Other types of size or locational requirements that we need to take a look at. So that's what we're getting ready to kick off, and we're working on our public outreach currently. As far as staff's list of identified topics, like I mentioned previously, we do want to look at the comprehensive sign plan process. We do want to look at potentially expanding this CSP process to not just the planned districts, but also to the conventional zoning districts. So maybe looking at the commercial zoning districts as well as industrial zoning districts. As part of the CSP process, we do want to look at including a set of review standards and guidelines for staff to use to analyze the plans that are coming through, as well as a set of submission requirements so we can guarantee that we have more standardized submissions and we can have all the materials that we need to review as part of this CSP process. We're also looking at the sign calculations for mixed use developments and for multifamily buildings. We have gotten some questions and some comments that it's very unclear, so we do want to clarify these calculations and how the signs should be measured and what the total allowances of signs are for these types of developments. And then last but not least, it's kind of a big placeholder for other revisions. As part of the pandemic, we have seen a lot of requests for mobile pickup signs. So if you're going, driving up to Target and having them put the groceries in the back, we want to take a look at seeing what the appropriate allowance for sign regulations for those types of signs may be. We do want to look at some signs for properties that are undergoing construction and renovation. We have received some comments about the time frame that those signs are allowed to be up as well as the size. So we do want to re-look at that and make sure those are appropriate. And then in addition, we do have another Supreme Court case on the horizon that's coming out of Austin, Texas, that relates to digital billboards. So we may be looking at rolling in any changes that need to be addressed that come out of that U.S. Supreme Court case as well. So beyond those topics, like I mentioned, we are in the outreach phase. So we are trying to get people's thoughts on the current regulations, if they're working and if they're appropriate for the different types of uses out in Fairfax County, if there's a topic that should be revisited or added to the program. So that's kind of where we'd like to hear from you all. I will note that in terms of our timeline, we are just getting started on our outreach. So we're trying to solicit feedback from different groups like you all, different land use committees, different stakeholders. We'd like to bring a bunch of ideas that we've heard in the comments we've received to the Board of Supervisors, to their land use policy committee. So not the actual board for a public hearing or a vote, but just to get feedback and guidance on what direction we should be taking in May of this year. And then following that kind of go ahead from the board and work on these topics, we'll then be producing some draft regulations that we'll be taking out again for community feedback on. So that's kind of our timeline. We will hopefully have public hearings in the fall or winter of this year on these regulations. So with that, like I said, I'd love to hear feedback on potential topics for the upcoming zoning ordinance amendment, or if you have additional questions that you didn't get to ask or comments you'd like to provide on the other topics, feel free to leave those in the chat or call in and we'll let you speak. Any comments, Janann or Sarah?
I'm not seeing any comments yet. I think people might be shy or something.
Or tired. I know Mike and I are tired.
Yeah, we don't have any callers either, so.
Okay. Okay. Well, we do have our contact information on the screen as well. You can feel free to email me at any time that if you do come across a comment, or if you want to kind of think about these and get back to us on your thoughts on the process, that's also completely fine. This is my direct email address as well as my phone number if you do want to give me a call. And then this is DCC, that email address that Mike had referenced, that's on their page as well as their phone number. These slides are posted on our sign regulation webpage, and this video will be available after the fact as well, if you do want to share it with any other members that you may think would be interested in this topic. So with that, if we don't have anything, like I said, feel free to contact us at any point, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, almost said Monday. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, everyone.
everybody.